think I would have died. I would have killed myself. I think I really was. I was angry with myself all the time. I was angry with my children, and that was what made me come. Because Tracy was sort of blaming herself for the breaking down our relationship. We were friends as well as husband and wife, and I couldn't keep putting her through the pain, so I had to tell her.
Afternoon and welcome to the Spartan Show on Sportanarium. I'm Lakey, joined by Arv Me Too. Hello, Arv.
Hello, everyone. Hello. How are you doing, guys? All right?
And then we've got Mr. Isham Pickering. Hello, Isham. You all right?
Hello, guys. How we doing, Lakey? How we doing?
All good, mate. All good. And we're very, 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 very honoured to have with us Kellie Maloney. Hello, Kellie. How are you?
I'm really well, and thanks for inviting us. And it's sort of great to catch up with two of the old school, as I call them, that I've worked with, and swap a few old stories. And it's
appreciate it.
That's what boxing's about.
Yeah, likewise.
Intently to you all chat.
Boxing is about old school, about friendship, about getting on with each other. But I'm on the outside looking in now, and I see how the sport has changed. I mean, I saw this week. I was sad to hear about Jim Evans, rest in peace. But again, he's one of the old school, and they're going. I mean, how many is left from the old school? There's Jimmy Gill still there. I know he won't appreciate this. There's Carl Greaves, he's a bit of the old school. But there's not many out there. There's not many great characters in British boxing there, and I don't know if anyone could name it. Well, I certainly couldn't name every British champion. And
Tibbs is still there. Mark's doing it for Jimmy now, isn't he? Mark Tibbs,
yeah.
Dominic for
yeah, but you don't hear of them no more like you used to hear of them. They were always around. They was always up there. There's no Nobby Knobs now. There's no Dean Powell. I mean, what a big loss to boxing Dean Powell was.
I know.
Dean was my right hand man, and really, he was the one I relied on so much throughout my career. And we got on well. We parted our ways at a certain time. He went one way and I went one, but we continued our friendship. And when I got the news about his sad death, it just shocked me. And I just think, why is the pressure that much in boxing? And if you go back, there was a young amateur, a young guy that I boxed as an amateur, Paul Worrell from Woolwich. He killed himself because of pressure. There was also a light welterweight that I managed as a pro fighter. He killed himself. I forgot his name. Edwards, I think it was Richie Edwards.
Edwards.
Yeah, and I look back and I just think, why are we doing? And then obviously there was my last big signing, Darren Sutherland.
I remember from Ireland.
Irish guy,
yeah. I mean, I think that was really me. That was my sort of. That was sort of the. Can I say the thing that finally turned the screw and made me face my own reality and my own truth?
Yeah.
Because I just don't know why and you think, why, when you've got so much in life, why would you want to take your life? And I've been there. I've been there. I've been in a psychiatric hospital. I've battled with demons, and it's still. It's something you're always battling with. I've battled for it all my life, and it's great to hear Ishan now is working as a support worker with mental health issues, you know, because it's something we don't look after in the boxing business. You know, I think boxers are the most ill-treated sportsmen out of any sportsmen or women out of any sport there is, because you look at it and you go back, look at your career. I mean, Art's, you know, we've been talking earlier, but Art's he's always had his job. But how many fighters haven't got a job? How many fighters, their careers are finished and they're just put on like a can of baked beans, just thrown away? No one cares about them.
To be quite honest, Kelly, it seems the majority of them in that situation where their career's finished and no one don't think about them. They think that they're going to be all right, but no, it don't go that way. You are totally right. You know, they always seem to have a few problems. I knew two twin brothers, Kelly, Billy and Ernie Smith. They end up hanging themselves. You know, they were two traveling fighters, and you know their career finished, and they end up hanging themselves. You know,
both of them, wasn't it?
It's not all, you know. It's not just the fighters that we know, as you say, about who've taken their own lives, but it's actually what happens. I mean, to me, I get the impression today that fighters are not allowed to develop. You know, in my days, we developed fighters before they were put into title fights. Nowadays, they're in title fights. Take the fight the other night. Josh Kelly, he's fighting for a European title after what, 10 professional fights, was it? I can't, off the top of my head, I'm not sure. You know, what experience has he had? You know, and then he's put him with a seasoned pro. And then to me, it's like a conveyor belt. Certain promoters have this conveyor belt. As soon as they they build these guys up, they sign them with great amateur pedigrees, don't give them a chance. There's a big difference between being a pro boxer and an amateur boxer. I don't care what anyone wants to say. You know, and nowadays I find a lot of the coaches, I use that word wrong. A lot of the trainers are not coaches. You know, I go back when you had the likes of Brendan Ingalls, Vic Andrietti, Ernie Fozzie, even Nobby Nobbs. You know, they could coach fighters. They taught fighters the art. Nowadays, you're getting a lot of these trainers. That's why I don't call them coaches. They're just fitness guys. They go in and they get your fight 100% fit. They do all this magnificent, as they call it, modern way of training. But boxing is about hitting each other, you know, and it's about I believe there's the old school way of training is still far better than any modern method that they're bringing in. That's, you know, that's my belief.
Love that, Ellie, because like I say, in my gym, like I say, 8 years I've had it, and I don't believe in all this new modern technology. It's boxing, and it's got to be boxing specific. So the boxing, not all these machines and this and that. You know, obviously your diet's got to be right and your hydration, but I believe in boxing, you know, the old school way, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, there is room for some, as you say, for, you know, I use sport. Yeah, we use sports science with Lennox Lewis. You know, we had Joe Dunbar, who's a top sports physiologist, but Joe Dunbar never interfered with the boxing training. His job was to keep Lennox's weight right, to keep his dehydration right, and, you know, to monitor his progress and to monitor his injury. And I believe it, you know, it kept Lennox's career going a lot longer, and he would have if he didn't have him. So there is a place for certain aspects of it, but it has to be used right. But Joe wouldn't go in and say, lift them weights, you know, go and do that. You don't need to spar today, go and do that. You're right, Ishan. You've got to spar to be a good fighter. You've got to punch the heavy bag. You know, you've got to do the pads the right way, not all these fancy pad stuff that you see Floyd Mayweather doing. Certain fights can get away with it. Yeah, you had a fighter in your gym who could get away with so much. Errol Graham. I mean, Errol Graham was, you know, a great craftsman, and he could get away with a lot more than you could, Art, or you could, Ishan. You know, if you tried some of the Errol Graham tricks, you'd have probably got knocked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's horses for courses.
Yeah.
So why do you think it's changed so much these days then? Why do you think a lot of these fighters, why do you think they are rushing them? Is it like a marketing thing? Is it all about a quick buck now, you know, getting the money in quick off them, cashing in on them?
I think it's television. Television are not giving fighters the chance to develop like we used to. Don't forget, we used to have, I used to have a show maybe originally at one stage. I used to have 2 shows a month. You could develop a fighter. and then they'd move on to, like, you used to have a Thursday or a Friday night, didn't we? And then you'd move on, once you progressed, you moved on to a Saturday night, the bigger shows. You had midweek boxing before on television. You don't get that no more.
No.
It's all about the big shows, you know, and TV are controlling the promoters. I actually think today's promoters, and they'll probably go mad, they're not promoters, they're TV producers. They're producing shows for TV. They're not developing a fighter's career.
Yeah. It's not that investment there, long-term investment in a fighter.
No, as I say, it's like a conveyor belt. One falls off, another one comes on.
Yeah.
And there's only one major promoter out there, Eddie Hearns, unfortunately. He's got no competition. In our days, we had competition. There was myself, there was Frank Warren, there was Barry Hearns. You know, we all had TV. And then Ricky Hatton became a promoter. He had TV. You know, when you give one person the whole TV contract, you create a monster. And that's what they've done.
Yeah, and of course, he's got the monopoly at Sky. Sorry, I'm just saying he has, hasn't he, Eddie Hearn? At Sky, nobody else, no other fighters, other promoters can use that platform. And in a way, that's monopolising it that way, like you said. Completely, it's poison in it, isn't it? It's kind of like, well, that's all. And of course, in this modern day and age of social media, you know, you've got Twitters, Facebook, Instagram, you know, and these boxing fans, and I use that term lightly with some of them on social media, you know, that's all they know, isn't it? They think Eddie Hearn is boxing and he's right.
You know, and listen, I'm not blaming Eddie Hearns because it's Sky the ones that have done it. You know, I had a contract at Sky. Ricky Hatton had a contract at Sky. Then all of a sudden, as our contracts came to an end, Sky management changed and they changed the way they wanted to do boxing. Do you know, I honestly think Sky don't like boxing. I think they just keep it because the pay-per-view, Eddie has to do so many pay-per-view events a year to make sure he can pay for all his other shows. Yeah. You know, and we're seeing more pay-per-view now than you've ever seen. I mean, who wanted to see, let's be honest, was Dillian White's last fight a pay-per-view event? No, but was one of Cesare's fight a pay-per-view event? No. The pay-per-view used to be a special occasion.
Yeah.
Yeah, big event like the Tyson.
Big event.
Holyfields and Lennox Lewis, you know, when they fought Tyson, those kind of events, wasn't it? But now,
you know, Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, that's a great event. That is pay-per-view. Fury and Klitschko, but not some of the fights that you'll be seeing Anthony Joshua in. They're not pay-per-view fights. No. You know, all Lewis's fights weren't pay-per-view fights. Only certain ones were pay-per-view fights.
Yeah, Lennox Lewis, you're right. There wasn't that many, was there, really, in reality?
One of the biggest fights in Britain, which I promoted, Lennox Lewis and Frank Bruno, the first all-British world heavyweight title fight.
You can forget that one.
That wasn't on pay-per-view. That was, you know, that was on Sky, a Sky platform.
Yeah. I didn't know that wasn't pay-per-view. I suppose looking back, because when was that? It was in the 1990?
No, it was about 93. It might be 93.
Yeah. When was it, Ish?
93.
93. I knew it was around then.
October. It was October, wasn't it? October 93.
That sounds right.
Yeah, October 93. I think it was.
That's it. Yeah.
Was that the Cardiff Arms Park?
Cardiff Arms Park. That was the night Joe Calzaghe made his pro debut. See, and we worked together. Joe Calzaghe wasn't one of my fighters. He was one of Mickey Duff's fighters. But you know, in them days, we may not have liked each other, but we all worked together because we all worked for the good of the sport.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think, is it, talking of monopoly, you know, or monopoly in sport and boxing, is it because, I mean, in this, we're talking promoters, TV, I mean, is it a case of, do you think, because the BBFC, you know, they are the main kind of licensing body in the UK, or in England, you know, Britain. So
they're the only licensing body in the UK.
Yeah. I mean, you've got other ones coming through now, like BIBA, British Irish Boxing Authority, are coming through, association. But I think they're starting to make some strides now, BIBA. I think a lot of the disenchanted kind of or fighters are moving across to BIBA slowly but surely, because Isham and I were talking the other day, like Rio runs that Gianluca Rio is the vice president. Yeah, so he's starting to make some strides. Do you think that's what it needs? Is it about making, like you've just said, if the people aren't going to work together, then maybe having that little bit of competition?
But will it be competition? Because if they don't get television, they won't succeed.
Yeah.
No,
They can't build champions, and if TV are not going to buy their fights, then they've got no chance of success. You know, you've got the PBA, haven't you, as well? Another organisation that's out there that used to be run by the ex-promoter that used to run the Professional Promoters Association. Used to work with Greg Steen. Another old school guy. That's
Dean, I was gutted about that.
yeah, you know, and you just it to me, I don't think it will change. I think Sky have made it this way, and Sky like it this way.
Had a few with Sky though, Kelly, didn't you? You had a contract with Sky for how long?
I was with Sky for maybe 90, well over 12, 15 years. I had a contract with Sky. I had a contract with Sky. I left Sky at one stage over when Lennox Lewis lost to Oliver McCall, and I went to Wire Television. I had a contract with Wire Television, but then Sky bought Wire out, so we went back to Sky with a much better deal. You know, I had a contract with Eurosport. I'm not moaning, but I just say how I look at it now. But I wasn't the only one with a contract. I wish I was the only one with a contract. I would have controlled boxing forever.
Kelly, did you ever, when Satanta was on, did you ever have any doings with them, Kelly, at the time?
I done one Graham Hill fight on Satanta.
Okay.
I forgot Graham Hill in the British title fight. I couldn't get it on Sky. And I couldn't get anywhere else at that time. And it was a great fight actually. And Sky came back and gave me a contract after that because I don't think they wanted to let anyone else get strong.
Satanta, I forgot about Satanta. Sorry, Isham, go on, mate.
Sorry, mate. Kelly, at one stage, Frank Warren had Sky exclusively to himself, though, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, and they learned. That's where they learnt their mistakes. Vic Wakeling was the head of Sky at that time, and they learnt by their mistakes. And they obviously gave a contract to me. And, you know, and then when I finished with Lennox, I went to work with Frank Warren as his consultant. And I didn't know that I was going to get some dates of my own. So them dates were given to Frank Warren. And then when my contract with Frank came to an end, I didn't want to renew it after 5 years. I didn't, because I wasn't really doing anything. I think I was just being kept out of the game in a way. And I decided I wanted to go back into promoting on my own. And I went to see Sky. And in fairness to Vic Wakeling, he went, "Do you know what? That's great. If you think you can deliver, we'd like to have a bit of opposition to Mr. Warren." And that's when I signed David Price. I didn't sign David Price at that time. I signed Darren Sutherland, Tony Jeffries, and there's a couple of other fighters I signed, you know. And I had a contract with Sky for quite a while, for about 7 or 8 years in. And then when Vic Wakeling left my contract ran out, and Ricky Hatton had a contract at that time. The new boss of Sky didn't want to renew the contracts. He wanted to go with one promoter. And we told him what had happened. You know, we tried to tell him about what happened with Frank Warren and how building a monster is not good for the sport. But they went with it, and that's what they've done. Yeah. That's my views, by the way. It may not be the views of every boxing fan out there.
It's good to hear the views, you know. That's what we're here for. It's nice, nice to hear your thoughts on the current, obviously with the background and experience. Sorry, Isha, was you going to say something again, mate?
Very experienced, Kelly, you know what I mean? Been around.
Definitely. So, I mean, we were chatting off air a little bit earlier, but it'd be nice for the listeners, and obviously when this goes out on YouTube as well. I mean, how did you? I mean, I know Isham spoke to you briefly about, but how did you get into the boxing? You know, how did that come around for you in life?
Well, I was picked on when I was young, and so I you know, my PE teacher. I used to get into lots of fights in school. So my PE teacher took me down to the gym and gave me a pair of boxing gloves, and I started boxing at school. I then joined a very unfashionable amateur club called Dock Kennel Hill,
All right.
and had a very old ex-army coach. And then I moved I moved to the Lynn, I moved to the Fisher. I wanted to go pro.
Kelly, both top clubs.
Them two were top clubs, yeah. And then I went, then in my neighbourhood, we started, Billy Kinwell started a club called Trinity in the Elephant and Castle to keep the kids off the street and that. So for some unknown reason, my brother and I joined the club, and my dad and a few businessmen formed a committee, started raising money, and I had a few fights for them. But then I sort of got married, had a job, and had other commitments, and so I took up training, and I became assistant trainer there. I developed into one of the main trainers there, and then I was offered a job at the Hollanton as a trainer, which was a good club at the time, Hollanton in Camberwell Green. So I went over to the Hollanton, and I started training there.
What year was?
A few of the fights, I can't remember the years, to be honest. It was I forget. You forget the years at a certain stage in life. You just think, oh, I think every day's a bonus.
I'm wondering if you remember Danny Costello.
Yes, I was there when Danny Costello was there. I was one of the trainers with Danny Costello was there.
Oh.
Did you box Danny in the amateurs then?
I didn't box him, but I know he won about 3 or 4 ABAs. I was a weight above him, but I always remember him. He was a good amateur, wasn't he? He didn't make it as a pro, but he was a very good amateur.
Yeah, we had some good fighters. We had another fighter called Dennis Hogan that was a really good fighter. We had quite a few good. Johnny Anton. We had some good fighters at the Hollanton. I was there. There was Terry Edwards came from there, who became the GB coach, and Barry, and was it Barry Francis? Yeah, Barry Francis. Roy Francis' brother, who was the good referee. And you know, and I learned a lot of my training methods there. Then I went back to the Trinity as matchmaker to help them out, and I made. I was the one that Frank Bruno had one loss as an amateur. Let me see if you can guess who it was against.
Frank Bruno.
Which,
I don't know.
Was he? Did he turn?
I made. No, he never went pro. He was an Irish fighter. He boxed when he was in the UK. He boxed for South Norwood Boxing Club. Joe Crystal.
Right.
I don't know if he did go pro. He might have gone pro. He was him and his brother were two heavyweight boxers, Mel Crystal and Joe Crystal. Mel Crystal is now the head of the Irish Professional Boxing Association and a barrister. And Joe is a top doctor in Ireland, I believe. So and Joe beat Frank Bruno. It was Frank's only loss in the amateur game. And
you know what, Kelly? How many fights did he have then as an amateur? I didn't have very many, did you, Frank? If I remember.
Yeah, quite a few, I think.
I'm not sure. He won
one of the youngest ABAs. Yeah,
he won the ABAs, but I'm sure he didn't fight very often as an amateur, though. I didn't think. Old Frank.
No, I had him on. I had him on 2 shows because he was quite a good draw. I put him in with Joe Crystal, which he lost, and it was great. That fight cost me Joe Crystal's airfare, which at that time was £100 from Ireland, and all the Guinness he could drink after the fight. And he could drink some Guinness, I got to tell you, especially when he got in with my dad and that little crowd. And then the next time I put Frank on, I put Frank in with Hugh Roy Curry, who not recently died, the heavyweight. And Frank won on points. And it was also Duke McKenzie's first senior fight. And he fought my brother and won and beat my brother Eugene on a split decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know Eugene fought as well, Kelly. You know, I didn't know he fought.
Eugene fought as an amateur and Eugene fought as a pro. He fought, and I know he fought Hugh Russell. Do you remember the Irish Olympian that went on to win the British flyweight title, bantamweight? Yeah, Eugene fought him in Belfast. Eugene had about 10, without checking, had about 10 pro fights.
Oh, okay. Kelly, I remember fighting on some shows, if I remember, on Sunday afternoon when he was there.
That Eugene was the promoter of them shows at the Elephant and Castle.
That's right.
Yeah, Eugene started Sunday shows. That's right.
Sunday show, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought on a few
Yeah.
of them, Kelly,
At the
back in the
Elephant
day.
Carnival.
Sounds
Yeah,
like that's the
yeah,
kind of thing we
quite
need
good.
back with Sunday shows from what you know, with all this.
I used to enjoy them.
Yeah, I was going to say Sunday afternoon, was it, or something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sunday afternoon. They used to do really well. He used to sell out as well.
Yeah.
They were, he was a good little promoter, my brother. And he built some good fighters up in his little stable there in South East London.
Yeah, Sunday afternoons. God, I could
Yeah.
probably do with some of that now. A post
Oh, it was
Hey.
fantastic.
in the market there, lads.
Yeah.
Hey, you can say Kelly is probably the only promoter that I know of that has done the whole lot.
Yeah.
Boxed, trained,
But I never
managed.
boxed professionally.
Yeah, but you boxed.
Nobody's done that. None of the others.
No, I say that I served in the and you got to remember. And then when I went in the pro game, I joined Frank Warren as his first trainer when he started with a company called Pirate Promotions, which you never get talked about these days. But I started as a trainer. I then fell out with Frank over training certain fighters, and I disappeared for a while. And then I came back as a manager, and I decided that I managed a young fighter called Richie Edwards from the Robert Brown Club, not the Richie Edwards we were talking about earlier. And he had 4 fights. He was a dustman actually, and he earned more. You know, he never lost any fights, but I never promoted him. He boxed on Billy Aird's show and Harry Holland's shows.
Oh, I know Billy Aird well because he used to live. I used to train in his gym down in Eastbourne, Golden Gloves.
Shock when you told me that. Like,
yeah,
you
he
know,
had the pub in Eastbourne, the Golden Gloves, before he became a referee. He
Yeah.
took over a pub near me, and I used to train with a Iranian guy.
And then Richie retired, and for a while I didn't bother. And then also other fighters came to me, so I started, and I decided that I never just wanted to be a journey manager and provide fighters for the promoters at the time, who were Mickey Duff, Mike Barrett, Frank Warren. They were the main big guys, and Ron Gray was promoting up the Midlands, but he worked with Duff and Co. So I started promoting myself at Lewisham Town Hall, and I built up a really good stable. My first champion, I think, was Ian Honeywood. He became a Southern Area champion, and then Mickey Duff came to me and offered me a job as his matchmaker. So I started making fights for Mickey Duff, and so I learned that as well, about matchmaking as well. And I remember falling out with Mickey one time over a fight I made. He had a really good fight who sold loads of tickets. He was undefeated in about 10 or 12 fights. And I had a young fighter out of the Woolwich area called Wayne Weeks. He was just an average fighter. And we made the fight, and Mickey wanted the fight on a contract weight. So I agreed to contract weight, and I made the fight. When we got there, Mickey's fighter was about 4 or 5 pound overweight. And Mickey flippantly just thought I would accept it because I was their matchmaker. And I went, Mickey, I can't do that. He said, what do you mean I can't? I said, I may be your matchmaker. I've made this fight. If you hadn't asked me to sign a contract, I wouldn't have a leg to stand on. You made me sign a contract. You made my fighter sign a contract. My fighter's made that weight. He went, well, we'll give you another couple of £100. I said, no, it's not about the money. I said, it's the principle now. I'm protecting my fighter's interest. He takes the weight off. Mickey didn't. I went, well, if he doesn't, you haven't got a fight. I said, so that's, and I knew this guy'd sold a load of tickets. And these were on the days when you weighed in on the afternoon and you fought in the evening.
Yeah.
So Mickey went, and he went over to Archie Kessler, was his right-hand man them days. Who I knew Archie was a great character. And he went to Archie. Archie used to just get him to take a pound off. He said, Maloney will agree to that. And I went, Archie, I've heard what he said. I'm not agreeing to it. Anyway, they got him skipping. They put him back on the scale. He'd lost about £1.50 pounds. And Archie went, come on, that much. I went, no. I said, we agreed the weight. I said, I'll give you £1. That's all I'm going to give away. So they put the fight. I've never seen anything like it. It doesn't happen either. They put the fighter in a sweatsuit. They put him in a steam room. They had him skipping, and this was now because he sold tickets and because it was obviously Mickey and it was the old school. You could break every rule instead of the 1 hour. They kept it going. Finally, about 4:30, he stepped on the scale. He was like death warmed up, and he was just a pound and a few ounces. And I went, no, that's so. And I went, no. I said he's got to take them few ounces off. And then as he went back to put the suit on, I went, no, it's okay. I said I'll accept it anyway. We got there on the night, and my guy won. There was bedlam because he just could not hold his hands up the other guy. So the next day, Mickey called me up the office. And he started shouting at me, swearing at me, telling me that you never get a house fighter beat. You never do what you've done again. You know, you'll never work in boxing if you perform like that. I went, Mickey, I may be your matchmaker, but I was also his manager. I said, so in that case, don't ever use any of my fighters because I am not providing bodies for you.
Yeah.
And I fell out with Mickey and I went to work for Mike Barrett because, Mike Barrett said, what you done was real good and you stuck to your principles. And then I developed and then I started working with a character called Ambrose Mendy. I don't know if anyone remembers him.
Yeah.
Ambrose sort of got Nigel Benn, and then we just developed. And then my first big fight was Nigel Benn and Michael Watson.
Brilliant. Cracking fight.
In the Finsbury, it was, what was it called? A Sunday afternoon fight. And it was on ITV, and it was also one of the first all British fights that was being live back to America.
For the Commonwealth,
the Commonwealth. And it was just about the same time as I just signed Lennox Lewis a couple of weeks before that. So obviously and then I had so many other fighters coming to me, and from there I just developed.
How did you manage to get connection with Lennox?
Yeah, that's a big coup, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, to this day, I still do not believe it, but it happened. I don't know because I'd always set myself this goal that I didn't want to be just a journey manager or promoter. And I always said this with some of the guys. I made great friends with some guys in the press. And I remember Ken Gorman, who was the chief boxing writer for the Daily Star. He died now, unfortunately. And a real character, and his photographer was Lawrence Lustig, who I think still works in boxing for Matchroom. They phoned me and told me about this heavyweight that everyone was trying to sign, and he was British and he won a gold medal at the Olympics. And I was like, what are you two drinking? I said, no British fighters won the gold medal. And they went through it all, and then I realised. I checked Lennox Lewis's record, and he was born in London. And Lennox Lewis had a brother called Dennis, and it was a bit of a coincidence. Dennis knew my brother Eugene, but that was on a different sort of way. And I talked Lennox into coming, but I didn't know Lennox only agreed to come really because he wanted to see his brother and spend a few days. And I managed to put together a consortium. Which involved John Hollins, who used to be the ex-Chelsea manager, a guy called Roger Levitt that had a big financial company in the city. And I somehow talked Lennox Lewis into signing a contract. A
loyal partnership with him, Kelly.
Yeah, it was a good partnership. I never actually ever fell out with Lennox Lewis. I fell out with Lennox Lewis' new management team that he brought in. Because I disagreed about the fight in South Africa. I didn't disagree with the fight. I disagreed with how they prepared for the fight. And they wouldn't follow my instructions and they needed to make a scapegoat, and they wanted to make me the scapegoat, and I refused to be made the scapegoat for the loss. And things and the new management stopped me talking direct to Lennox, and it just wasn't way I wanted to be, so I just decided. They say they sacked me, but I can tell I left before they didn't sack me.
Walked away. It was a big decision as well at that time, I should think.
Yeah, it was, because there was the Tyson fight, and there was some big fights there. I mean, I walked away from a lot of money, and I could have stayed if I agreed to sign another contract that took all my responsibilities away and just made me a figurehead, and I wouldn't do it.
No, especially after what you've been through together, in the
yeah. So and I've never, as I say, I've never had a crossword with Lennox, other than when he worked with David Price. That I disagreed with the training methods that he used to prepare David Price for the rematch with Tony Thompson, which was a fight I did not want, and I insisted not to take. And I didn't want David Price to train with Lennox Lewis, not because I didn't, because I just think Lennox Lewis was a different type fighter to David Price, and we saw that Lennox tried to train David the way he fought. Well, you can't train a guy that's 6'8" to fight the way that David was built compared to the way Lennox was built and the way Lennox fought.
Kelly, in your opinion, you know, having that rematch with Tony Thompson, would you say that maybe David was never the same after that one?
Yeah, I can honestly say, and there's witnesses to this, we sat in a room, very much like Ishan said, we met in a hotel in London, and David had a lawyer, Robbie Davies, I think his name is, yes. I think he looks after quite a few fighters. And he wanted to be the boxing manager as well. And we sat in a room and I said to David, we don't need this rematch. You know, what happened is in the past. I said, I can get you 4 fights. I said, you'll win all 4, you'll get an offer, you'll get a world title fight. But I said, and people forget about the rematch. I said, and then let Thompson have a few more fights, and if he gets bashed up in them, then we'll take the rematch. Because styles make fights.
That's
and
right.
honest, when I looked at the style on the night, I realised that I'd made a Rick making that fight, but it was too late because they were in the ring. You know, Thompson was a very old KG pro, and was on the last front, been in with some great fighters. You know, did I put him in too soon? I don't think I did, but it was the wrong fight, and I hold my hands up to that. That's why I didn't want the rematch. And I sat with, when we walked out of that meeting, and I was going through my own personal problems at this time. I'd started my transition, and no one knows that, and I wasn't in love with boxing anymore because of obviously what happened with Dean Powell, what had happened with Darren Sutherland. And there was also the tragic accident of Paul Ingalls way back in Sheffield, when he defended his title against the South African on the Joe Kawasaki, Richie Woodall card.
Yeah.
Support. So I'd really sort of started falling out of love with boxing. And when we walked out of the meeting with David Price and his lawyer, I turned to my lawyer who was there and my daughter who was working for me, that's my general manager, and I went, win, lose or draw, I'm walking away from this because I would never, ever agree to that fight. I said, I don't know why I've agreed to it, but they threatened to sue me if I didn't deliver it. They threatened, you know, because in the contract he had final say. That's how. And
Who threatened to sue you, Kelly?
the lawyers said they would sue me if I didn't make the rematch.
Right.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, you know, and that's why you've never, again, with that rematch, they can't say anything because everyone knows I actually went on and said that I did not agree to this rematch, but I'm making it because let me just decline that, because my fighter's insisted he wants it.
Yeah. Backed into a corner, really.
Yeah.
Totally backed.
On a note, Kelly, what is your favourite memory?
Do you know what? It's funny. Everyone judges me on Lennox Lewis, but I have so many different memories. I'll tell you one of my favourite memories was the night Julius Francis beat one of your fighters. What was that heavyweight you had? Brendan.
Oh, Reed.
Kellie Reid. That was one of my real favourite memories.
That was a great fight.
Because again, Julius Francis was one of the most underrated fighters ever.
Yeah.
Hardly any amateur career, but he went on to win the Lonsdale belt outright. He beat Danny Williams. He fought all the best. You know, he even, he got in the fight with Mike Tyson in Manchester.
I remember that.
Yeah. And after that fight, I did tell Julius to retire because I said you could live on that forever. But unfortunately, Julius wanted to carry on, and he went in with another heavyweight I had in I think for his British title and lost it, Mike Holden.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and after that, I said to Julius, I can't manage you no more because you're not the same fighter. You're not listening. And unfortunately, Julius went on and just continued fighting, And I have to say, Julius and I are still friends today. We talk, we talk about it, and we laugh about it. And then there's also Rendell Munro. When Rendell Munro joined me, he was a 6-round journeyman. He won. We built him slowly, rebuilt his career because I saw something in him special. He lost to Andy Morris when I went, and then I went and asked could I sign him, and he was with what's his name, Sinclair, Mike. Is it not Mike
Shinfield? Mike Shinfield.
Mike Shinfield, that's it, and Jason Shinfield, and we built, and he went on, and look at how many times he defended the European title. I mean, he beat that great Spanish fighter, Clico Martinez,
That's right.
Good win.
We went to Japan, and he went 12 rounds with the best world bantamweight champion at that time. And there was like Paul Ingalls, Scott Harrison. People forget about all these, and there's so many other little fighters that no one expected. They went on to win British titles, maybe Commonwealth titles, European. I mean, Tony Oki. I had great nights with Tony Oki. That he became the WBU light heavyweight champion.
Wasn't he a Portsmouth lad?
That's what I'm saying. We used to sell out Portsmouth with him. It was unbelievable. Wayne Elcock, another young fighter, when he joined us again.
From my town.
Yep. A nice guy. Another guy that I still speak to. And it's great to see these guys like Rendell, Wayne, Eshan, still working in boxing, passing on their knowledge because they are knowledgeable people.
Yeah.
And
you work very close with Scott Harrison.
I worked very close with Scott Harrison. In the end, I just couldn't, there was a lot more to the Scott Harrison situation. And in the end, I just couldn't take it anymore because this kid was destroying himself in his own career. I mean, I think he now boxes under that.
Bieber. He's under Bieber now. He boxes under Bieber, yeah. But he
was a great fighter. To me, he was, but unfortunately, instead of staying on that straight road, he got into bad company and he lost everything.
Shame that.
Tragic. Here, a very common story though in boxing, isn't it? A lot with the boxers, do well. And one of my great things was Jimmy Gill's fighters, the two brothers. One's just recently died.
Nick Booth and Jason Booth, friends of mine.
Booth.
Yeah, Jason Booth. Jason Booth fought for the world title for me in Sunderland, and he was I thought he'd win it, but it was just too late. Yeah, the Canadian fighter.
Yeah, good fighter. Yeah.
I wanted to make Steve Molitor and Rendell Munro because I would have put my life on Rendell beating him, but they would have Rendell Munro, and I had to deliver a world title to Sky for my TV contract.
Yeah.
And Jason was on a good run at the time, but he was coming to the end of his career.
Yeah.
He was in front on all the scorecards when he got stopped.
Good fighter, Jed. Did loads of sparring with him. Good fighter.
Just ran out of steam. And another great moment was when Errol Graham joined me and he beat Vinny Pazienza at that show.
Remember that?
And then after that, to Atlantic City, and he fought for the world title, and he had Charles Brewer on the floor twice.
Yeah.
And he just ran out of steam. His age caught up with him.
Yeah, crazy.
I remember that one.
Kelly, wasn't Audley Harrison one of your fighters also?
No, he wasn't one of my fighters, but I put him in with David Price, didn't I? And
he fought David.
To be honest, I was one of the people that worked against Audley because of the way he came into boxing and tried to start a new regime of fighter doing everything himself. The
good memories are endless, Kelly. Aren't they, really?
There's lots of good memories there. There's a lot more. We could sit here for ages because I just love talking about.
That's a good guy. That's a good thing, though, isn't it? The good memories are the best, and it's better to be cheerful about it. There's some bad ones, but it's best to remember the good ones.
I always say this: everyone's life is full of
ups and downs.
But do you know what? You can't live in the ups and downs because tomorrow's a new day. It's like a hangover. The ups and downs don't last forever. If you have a hangover, it doesn't last forever. So that's how I compare it. The next day you wake up, it's a brand new day. So let's get on, and you have to get on with your life.
Yeah. Totally agree, Kelly. You just got to keep going. I understand that.
Yeah.
Totally agree. And I mean, at the moment, so I mean, I know Isham was talking to you a little bit about it earlier, again off air, but you're managing a lady from Northern Ireland,
Yeah, Kathy McAleer.
Kathy McAleer, and we spoke to Kathy last night, and
Yeah.
I mean, she's tremendous. What a
Yeah,
lovely lady.
Yeah, she's a lovely lady. Unfortunately, this virus has obviously put a damper on her, not just her career, on most fighters' career. I think it's going to be very hard for some of the fighters to get their careers back online, and some of the small hall promoters to get back, because unlike football, they've not had the help. Nothing's been passed down from the British Boxing Board of Control to grassroots level in boxing. It's only the two big promoters that have been able to survive, and MTK, isn't it, the new promotional outfit? They're the only three that have survived through the lockdown. It's sad, because there are so many fighters out there who depend on fighting, who also need to fight so they can build their career.
Yeah. We speak to a lot of, especially the ladies fighters. Isham's disappeared. I think he might have lost his signal, but hopefully he'll come back. But I mean, there's loads of them, that have been taking up part-time work. There's Beck Connolly, who we chat with, and she's been doing, she's been begging for fights, absolutely begging for fights, but nothing's materialised for her. But she's been.
Yeah, I also think
scaffolding and that.
You know what? And I also think the British Boxing Board are not really doing justice to women's boxing.
No.
A woman. How can a woman fight for a world title after 4 or 5 fights, yet not fight for the British title? They will not let women boxers fight for British titles at the moment. Yet a woman boxer pays the same license fee as a man. She has to go through the same medicals as a man. So why can't they have a British? They say there's not enough women. Forget that excuse.
That's it. They say there's no depth. There's no depth. They can't justify a British title.
They can't develop. They can go in and fight for. Eddie Hearns is putting some women in for fights, and other promoters for world title fights after just 3 or 4 fights. That's disgraceful. The British Boxing Board have a lot to answer for.
I mean, Kelly, as there is a Commonwealth title and ladies can fight for it, do you think there will be at some stage the British for the ladies to fight for just as well?
It should be.
As
if I had enough women, I'd be kicking up. I mean, I've got Kathy, but Kathy's licensed by the Irish Boxing Board. That's why I don't kick up at the moment.
Yeah.
If I had some women British fighters, I would be screaming from every rooftop. I think it's an injustice to women's boxing.
Totally agree. I mean, also, as that's a bit like you were saying about the guys coming through and learning as they progress through the different stages of their careers. The girls need that too, don't they? They need to fight. Instead of being chucked in at
I was never a great fan of women's boxing. I hold my hands up to that. But then days it wasn't commercially successful. But I see it is developing, and I think women boxing is quite skillful. Not all of it is skillful because they've not had the same background as the guys have had, but they still, because if they paid a different rate to for their licenses and had to pay cheaper medicals, I wouldn't be saying anything. But if you're paying the same money as a man, why are you not treated the same?
Totally agree with.
I talked to a woman boxer the other day. I was on a show on an international women's conference, and we were talking, and she said women got more use through COVID because they get paid a lot less than the men boxers do, and that's why they were getting pushed. Now, again, maybe that's okay because women only fight 2 minutes, a bit like the tennis that do 5 sets, but they should be paid a reasonable fee. So far, the last show we were on, Kathy, I know promotion's different now, and that's another thing which the fighter has to sell tickets to get on the show, and they don't sell enough tickets that they don't fight. And I can understand that because, promoting is a bottomless pit. I always remember when I told Mickey Duff I wanted to be a promoter on my own, he said to me, "Why, do you want to make a small fortune?" I went, "Yeah, it'd be nice." He went, "Well, you better start with a big fortune," because it just dwindles away. Ishan, you work with the Ingles. They promote every so often, but if you haven't got the fighters selling tickets and you haven't got TV, you know, when I had my big company, I could afford to run a few shows where I lost money because I'd make it up on the other big TV shows. But
Brandon said to me, if you've got TV, you've got half a chance. If you've got no TV, it's almost impossible, you know.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you know, I work with John Pegg and Tommy Owens up in the Midlands every so often, and you know, but we do a deal where Kathy sells her tickets. She covers her opponents. She gives X amount to the promotion, and then we agree a purse out of the rest of her money, her ticket sales.
It's tough, isn't it?
You know, and it's
Very tough.
It's very tough, you know, and
Because
I look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, that's the only way, and I found that is the norm in boxing now.
Yeah.
So it shows how, because when we promoted, we always guaranteed, even like when Art was saying about Eugene on the Sunday shows, win or lose money, he paid the fighters they were all paid even though they didn't sell any tickets.
Yeah.
So nowadays it is about they've got to sell those tickets.
Yeah, no, I've heard fighters who've turned up with tickets, and because they have not sold enough to cover their opponent and obviously cover X amount for the show, because that's how it works, the promoter's taking them off the show there and then.
Yeah, I've heard this.
Shit, that's really extreme, isn't it?
So, you know, the British Boxing Board should be stepping in and doing some kind of structure. You know, maybe they should help these small hall promoters and help the fighters develop.
I mean, Kelly, how's them getting on? I mean, there's been any small hall shows for a long time. I mean, will there be any coming back soon? It makes me wonder. It's been such a while.
About a year.
Over a year each, yeah. And it depends on the government, doesn't it? If they allow the crowds into the hall.
Yeah.
There's talk they're going to let indoor events happen with up to 1,000 people sometime in May. So we may see boxing come back in that way. But, you know, you got to remember, most fighters will be a year behind their career.
Yeah, and that's a long time, you know. You know, I know there's even training is probably there because probably after taken jobs to live, haven't they? Yeah. So
training has been affected a lot.
Yeah, so they haven't had the time to train properly. You know, it can't be a full-time thing, can it? And the sponsors have probably dwindled.
You know, as much as we moan about boxing and say it's changed, there's always going to be boxing, no matter how and what form, because it's something people like. You know, it's a sport. It's entertainment with violence. That's what it is nowadays.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We interviewed another guy last night. Actually, Dean, was it Smudger? Oh, what was his name? Smudger Smith. Was it Dean? But he's bare knuckle boxing.
Bare knuckle. Yeah.
That seems to be the big one at the minute. They're all queuing up for that at the minute.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I would advise not to. A set of promotional team came to me, and I went to 2 of their shows. They're the most horrific things I've ever seen.
I watched some of it on YouTube. It's pretty extreme.
Yeah, it's not. You know, it's not. Look, boxing is the most dangerous sport there is. There is no defence for boxing, but it's the choice of the individual. But at least with, you know, as much as I disapprove a lot that the British Boxing Board of Control do, their medical side and their control of the sport is quite good on the night when it's happening. You know, and without that, you know, and it's taken a long time to get to where they are. So any of these new associations and these bare knuckle shows or whatever, and do they have the same medical background? Do they have the same medical checks?
Which is key, health and safety first, isn't it, for the fighters?
Health and safety is most important because, you know, boxing. You know, we can all name boxers that have had serious injuries and their life has been affected badly. You know, I know it took a terrible case of Michael Watson for the British Boxing Board to change a lot of their policies to this issue. And, you know, one accident or one death in the sport is one too many to me.
Yeah.
And when you say that, it's not just from the fighting. So it's like we touched on earlier with the suicide rate amongst boxing, you know, boxers. You know, that's another area that it obviously needs to be, you know, there needs to be some kind of support there for the fighters that maybe have retired or are going through a hard time, you know, and, you know, what is there for those people at the minute? Is there anything?
I don't think there is. I mean, you know, as I said earlier, I think boxers are probably the worst treated sportsmen in the history of any sport. You know, and not just in Britain, throughout the world, to be honest.
Yeah, it's tragic though. I mean, because the guys and the girls now, obviously, you know, they're when they're stepping in the ring, you know, they are. I know it's to entertain, and
They're taking their life in their own hands.
but every time they step between the ropes.
But the problem, but they do know the risks. I mean, that is, you know, and I'm not trying to defend boxing, because I don't think there's a defence for it. But the only defence I can say, you can't take the choice of the individual away, because if you do, you're then living in a controlled state. But I mean, I asked Art and Ishan, when you retired, did anyone come to you and talk to you and tell you what you could do after, or advise you what you should do? Or when you were boxing, were you ever advised, when you was earning money, what you should do with your purses?
Kelly, I was a very lonely man. Everybody walked away. Like I said, I had 3 belts at one time, and ended up skin. So I had a couple of asses, one on mortgage and one on that I paid for. But life took me the wrong way. I've never been a drinker or anything like that, but I lost my house and then sold the other one, but just at the wrong time, you know. So I was very down for a long time. It was tough, and so many fighters have been in my position. Most of them go, you know, really struggle. I know they really struggle when they finish boxing, and I've been there. But I mean, it takes the special guy to get back to it, and you've got to, you know, we're all in the same boot, so we have to dig deep ourselves. That's the way I see it. But it's good if there'd be a little bit more help, probably, you know, just like you said.
I mean, look at
Mate, you off.
Look at Frank Bruno, the success Frank had. Yet look at the mental issues he went through, and the papers just destroyed him, called him bonkers and everything and things like that.
Name in
That's
the
the
sport.
British media for you, though, that, isn't it? Christ,
Yeah.
you know.
But, you know, so it's
Ricky Hatton.
Yeah,
So many.
He had another really successful boxer. You know, I mean, even what's his name, Chris Eubanks.
Yeah.
They reckon, you know, it's hard. The British Boxing Board of Control should set up certain things like educational programs, educate boxers, help them understand it. You know, the boxers union, there should be a union that really works with the boxers and explains everything to them. And I think it should be compulsory that boxers join it.
Yeah, I was going to say, like a workplace pension. If you get a job in the UK, that's compulsory that you sign up for a pension, isn't it? Comes out your salary, you know, every month. And take that payment, and it goes into your pension pot.
Look at footballers. You know, you don't hear many skint footballers, even those that don't make the top. They still retire on a sort of a small pension. You know, every little bit helping when you retire. And you know, as what Ishan said, there should be something for after boxing, because you can't be just dumped on the roadside and everyone walks away from you. Yeah. You know, all the back slapping stops. You know, I remember the first time Lennox Lewis got beat by Oliver McCall. My phone stopped ringing. No, I was before that. I was like, everyone wanted to invite me everywhere. Lennox Lewis gets knocked out, people stop inviting me. I had to pay to get into clubs there before I got in for nothing.
Yeah.
Oh God.
I can't believe you're saying that for Lennox. Can't believe that.
Yeah, it shows you, doesn't it? It shows us a good example. That's one loss. You know, guy that's Olympic gold medalist, you know, won a world title, first loss, and then that's the straight away. All of those clean-ons.
That's how it is, Lakey. Honestly, it is.
It is. It's amazing. But do you know what? It's a sport that I don't know. It's an addictive sport, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
I keep trying to move across to football, but I always get dragged back the box. And
I know. I got asked when I was at the top of my game, why don't you manage footballers? It'd be a lot easier. But you know what? I never diversified. There was just something about boxers when you sit and talk to them and their dreams, you know, and you think, I can help them achieve their dreams. And some of the saddest things is when you've got to tell a guy that he's never going to make it.
Yeah.
You know, it's or when you have to give a fighter back a contract because you just know it's not going to work. And you know, you got to put the fighter first, because you know, I was, you know, probably my own. I never wanted to have bad fighters in my stable because it wasn't good for my image.
No.
You know, and it wasn't good for TV.
Yeah, and that is the business. It is a business at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And like you say, for promoters, it's cost you. You know, if you're forking out a load of money and you don't want to be running on, no business wants to run on a loss, does it? Unfortunately, because it won't go very far, last very long. So,
Did you ever lose from a show, Kelly?
Yeah, plenty of times.
Yeah.
Yeah, on shows that everyone thought I made a lot of money on, we lost money on.
Yeah.
You know, but that's, you know, but then I've made money on shows, so I'm not gonna. But having a heavyweight champion of the world, we made money on all them shows. So that paid a lot of the other shows and helped us develop fighters.
I heard Frank Warren say that he'd never lost money on a show. Do you think he's telling the truth?
Who's that?
Frank Warren. He'd never lost money on a show, he said.
I don't know. I think we all maybe over the year, like I said, when you do your books over the year, you've made money. That's how I used to work my books.
yeah.
But you know, because I saw on Facebook one of the I don't know where someone got one of my costings of one of my shows, a Paul Ingalls fight, I think it was. I don't know how they ever got it. And they put it up on Facebook. And you know, it's the actual count I was looking at the other night, and I thought, my God, and it made a profit of £2,000 the show.
Bloody hell. Nothing. Nothing.
You know.
I mean, obviously, we don't want to keep you too much. We're eating into your time. I know and appreciate that you're here, but what's the future look like for you now? Then, what's the plans? Obviously, you got Kathy. Are you thinking?
You know what? I don't know. I'm not thinking about anything. I take every day as it comes. I'm watching the situation with the COVID. You know, I've made a commitment to Kathy McAleer. I will honour that commitment. I've had quite a few fighters approach me since it's been known that I'm sort of floating around. But I don't know if I want the stress. I don't know if I want the anxiety. I don't know if I want to go back into that rat race. You know, I always said this. I jumped into a pool full of sharks and I had to become a shark to survive. And you know what? I wasn't a nice person when I was a boxing promoter. And I don't want to be that. I don't want that sort of personality to come back again.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, like Isham said it. I think you'd be a welcome addition back into boxing for sure because of that knowledge and experience you've got. Mate, you know,
and if I'm honest, I think I'd be a better promoter now than I was because I'm not lying to myself and I'm not hiding the real me.
Exactly.
That's the difference. But would I get TV? That's the issue, you know. And would fighters want to come in?
You'd never say never by the sounds
Sorry?
of it. You'd never say never by the sounds
No,
of it.
Yeah, it's still there.
No, I mean, I do look and I do think sometimes, but if I'm honest, Ishan, I live a very happy, peaceful life now. I'm very chilled. I can choose what boxing I want to watch if I don't want to watch it. I don't watch a lot of boxing. As I said, I couldn't name many British champions today. I don't even know who the heavyweight champ. Oh, yes, I do. Joe Joyce, isn't it? Because I saw that fight.
I was going to say, people don't know, but a few years ago, 10, 15 people would have known every British champ. But even I have to sit
I knew every champion from flyweight right the way through.
Yeah.
But you know what as well? You don't get much boxing on TV anymore. It's all on Sky now, and not everybody.
Everyone streams it.
Well, unless you've got about 50,000 followers on social media, you're not going to get on in boxing. I can assure you now.
Yes.
You know, certain promoters now judge their boxers through their social media status.
It's all changed.
That's tragic. That's tragic. That is tragic, isn't it? When you look at it.
It's tragic.
That's why the likes of Jake Paul and all these YouTubers are getting on and getting fights now. They've got like 20 million followers on YouTube or
crazy.
And they're getting into the ring with Floyd Mayweather, don't they?
The world has changed, and is boxing the same now? Because you just said it, you're getting celebrities getting in the ring and boxing, and it's not even under proper boxing rules, is it? Or and then you got, God, you had Floyd Mayweather fighting that Irish guy from the UFC.
McGregor.
Please, I wouldn't even pay to watch that fight.
And the people did that, made a sod load of money, didn't it? Sod load.
you know, it's you know what they say. You can kid some of the people some of the time, but you can't kid all of the people all of the time.
All the time. Yeah, that's very true.
Right.
Very, very true. Well, I suppose, Kelly, we better let you get on because we've taken lots of your time.
No, I've enjoyed it. It's been great talking to the boys. Yeah.
Likewise.
It's been
Fantastic,
wonderful
Kelly.
to have you on.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you for coming on, Kelly. Really nice to see you on here.
It's been absolute pleasure to have you on. You're a legend. Legend of the sport.
Let
And
me
if
know
you
when
ever-
it's going up and I'll put it out on social media. I'm on social media.
Yeah, no, we'll put it all on there for you. But I'll let you know. I'll drop you a message and let you know when it's going on. But
Thanks for
it's-
interviewing Kathy yesterday because she needs help and want to keep her out there.
anytime.
She was lovely. She was really nice, Kelly.
Yeah.
Really nice lady, Kelly. She was.
Yeah, super duper. And hopefully in this COVID situation, if eventually calms
Yeah,
down.
we'll do it again.
Yeah,
Get
her back out.
Get some fights and starts winning. Yeah.
Win, lose or draw, we're not fussy. We get them all, and we just like to hear people.
Well, you know what? I'm one of the from the old school where loss is not the end of your career. Sometimes a loss helps your career.
Exactly. Well, look at Lennox.
It depends what you learn from that loss.
Yeah,
Exactly. Top advice. Top advice. Well, Kelly, it's been absolute pleasure. And like I say, legend. And if you ever do decide to come back to British boxing, you'll be very warmly embraced, I'm sure. And we'd love to see you back at ringside. So it'd be wonderful. And it's been a pleasure to chat.
Stay safe, gents. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for coming on.
Bye. 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 Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.